Welcome to Prospecting Today's podcast. Today we are joined with real estate agent Jason Morris, who for the past 12 years has learned how to master FSBOs. So today we're going to talk all things FSBOs with a guy who's put out a book called How to Be a FSBO Master. Jason, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'll tell you though, it's actually been 16 years. It's been a fast 16 years. You know, I look back and I go, man, where did time go?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the real estate market across the nation is just, it feels like it's booming, like it's exploding, and FSBOs are a big part of that. So what do you think it is that has some agents just really missing the boat when it comes to capitalizing on FSBOs?
I think some agents, I think with for sale owners, some agents, I think it's mindset. I really think a lot of times their mindset like defeats them before they even get the opportunity. You know, it's kind of funny. I think a lot of agents, they don't worry about making the phone calls and people saying no. They worry about what's going to happen when they say yes. You know,
yeah.
But I feel like a lot of agents, they don't. I think fear and uncertainty is one thing. You know, we're in an interesting time right now, especially the number of real estate agents are growing like crazy. And a lot of them, you know, have this idea that we're marketers. You know, they forget that their real estate license act most of the time says salesman on it or salesperson on it, you know?
Right.
And I think a lot of them too, maybe they had some sales experience in the past, and they make a couple of calls, they kind of get shut down by a few for sale owners, or they get them on the phone and the for sale owner goes, hey, we don't want to list with an agent, or we don't want to pay a real estate commission, or we'll pay you 3% to bring us a buyer. And they just haven't worked on building the skill set and learning the scripts and dialogues and ways to overcome those objections. I think that creates a lot of fear.
That's kind of the biggest thing they're up against, right? When you're dealing with a FSBO, you have somebody who doesn't want to pay the fee. So how do they overcome the objection fee, which seems to be kind of the number one objection with FSBOs?
I'll tell you, I learned this concept from somebody else. I stole this concept that I'm about to tell you. I didn't come up with them on my own. There's two different types of salespeople out there. There are converters and there are sorters, right? And converters, have you ever heard of this before?
No, please teach us.
Okay, so converters, what a converter is let's use this example. You're flipping through a deck of cards. Okay, a converter will flip through the deck of cards, and you know they're looking for aces. Aces are the people that want to work with you. They're the people that are motivated and want to do something today. They come across an 8, and instead of keep on flipping the cards or keep on going through the cards, they run to their desk, get an ink pen, and they come back and they try to make that 8 an ace, right? But we know an 8 can never be an ace. You know, they'll find a 6 and they'll try to make it a 9. They try to convert them. They try to turn a non-believer into a believer. And really, I'll tell you, I blame Hollywood on that because we watch all these crazy movies like Wolf of Wall Street and Boiler Room and stuff like that, and we see Leonardo DiCaprio on the phone with somebody, and the person clearly doesn't want to buy what he's selling. And all of a sudden, he delivers a masterful, sharp line to him, and all of a sudden turns that person from a non-believer to a believer, right? They buy all they can afford to buy from him. And they immediately converts them. Well, the only place that conversions like that really happen where you can say something magical and it change a person like that or change their decision immediately is in the movies. That only happens in the movies. Now, the second type of person is a sorter. Now, a sorter is actually being a prospector. That's what we want to be. We want to flip through the deck of cards as quick as we can, looking for all the aces. Now, the sorter goes through their list of numbers, and they're looking for the people that are truly motivated, the people that tell them on the phone their deep, dark secrets. Why are they selling the house? What they need to get for it, where they're moving, why they're moving. They tell them everything. You know, we've all talked to some of these people before. Give you their whole life story within 30 seconds of you being on the phone with them. Now, the sorter, typically what they do is they go through the stack of cards, they pull out all the aces, but what they keep doing is they keep going through the deck of cards. right? They circle back around to everybody else. They check everybody's temperature every now and then and just kind of see where they are. Some of those people that wasn't motivated a week ago, maybe they're motivated this week. Maybe, you know what, first of the month, mortgage payments are due again, right? You call a seller in the middle of the month, mortgage payments are paid. They're not really that motivated. Maybe they just put it on Craigslist. They're getting a lot of calls, right? They don't have a lot of motivation because they feel like they're making progress. However, you call them at the first of the month when the mortgage payment's due again. That buyer didn't come through like they said they were going to. The calls have started to slow down, you know. All of a sudden, their progress is starting to turn into wheel spinning a little bit of frustration. People, you know, buyers not showing up when they said they were going to, buyers not really being qualified, you know, that whole thing.
Right.
So really, what we want, the person that doesn't want to list with us today is not going to list with us today. A lot of agents will spend a lot of time focusing, thinking about, and trying to run down that person that's not their ideal client, not the client that really wants to do business, you know?
Right.
And you know, we all go through that. As buyers ourselves, we all go through that. We all look at, gosh, you want to buy a car, chances are you've been looking at cars for 2 months before you actually pull the trigger and buy one. You know, and a lot of us as agents, we get a little upset when we don't get that immediate gratification, so we kind of start moving on quickly. And I feel like a lot of agents, you know, that concept isn't taught in real estate school. It's not taught in real estate offices, really. A lot of agents think that you can get a magical script and just say the right words, and every for sale owner is going to beg you to come to their house. But it's not quite like that, you know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people start to feel that pushback and they begin to give up. And that's kind of where you come in and teach them a little bit of grittiness and perseverance and really what it takes to hang in there and get the FSBO client, right?
Yeah, it really is. The biggest thing is, you know, a no today doesn't mean no tomorrow. And the thing is that, you know, sometimes today is just not a good day. You know, I hear agents, they'll say, well, I tried to set an appointment with them and they wouldn't take an appointment, or they wouldn't set the appointment with me. Well, the thing is, maybe they had something going on at 2 o'clock today, right? They couldn't meet you at 2 o'clock because they had a doctor's appointment. A lot of agents, though, they look at this thing, they think they're getting objections, but sometimes they're actually getting conditions. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
You know what the difference is between a condition and an objection? A condition is something that's not going to work around us. It's something that's truly happening out there in the world. For example, they can't meet with you at 2 o'clock because they have a doctor's appointment at 2. The doctor isn't going to let them reschedule because the real estate agents want to come to their house. You know, a few years ago we had Hurricane Michael here, and this is a great example. I had a seller, great guy, had a lot of conversations with him. Like, this guy, you know, I was pretty sure he was going to work with me, and we talked about putting his house on the market. However, we had a hurricane happening that week. You know, we didn't know how bad it was going to be, and unfortunately, Hurricane Michael was a little bit worse for us than we thought it was going to be. This was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So the guy had a tree that fell over on his house. So I call him after the storm. He tells me he's got a tree that fell over on his house. He needs to get the tree cut off and the shingles replaced and roof fixed. So now a lot of agents will look at that and they go, oh, man, he don't want to meet with me. He don't want to put his house on the market, so they never call him back. The truth is, it would have done a disservice to both of us to put his house on MLS with a tree laying over on the roof, you know?
Right.
I mean, but that's a condition. There's nothing we can do about it, except the only thing that's going to take care of a condition is time. We just have to wait until the condition ends, you know? And an objection is a little bit different. Objection's a smokescreen. Do you know how, I don't know if you're getting these, but I'll tell you, I feel like every real estate agent in the country is getting them. They're getting these healthcare calls to sell us healthcare. It's healthcare telemarketers, right? Huh. You know how when you get that telemarketer that calls you, we all have that go-to line. Oh, we're not interested. We're not busy. We already have health insurance, whatever it is. I think it's just human beings living in the United States, we all basically, we're kind of the same, you know. When somebody calls us, we don't ever want to think of ourselves as being sold, right? So when somebody calls us about selling something, we immediately shut down and we immediately give them that line that we know is going to get them off the phone with us the quickest, right?
Yeah.
It's like second nature.
Right.
It's like, I think it's a survival thing. I think it's a 21st century survival thing for us, you know, to immediately know the objections. But here's the thing for sellers. There are not new objections. You know, the same objections we're getting today are the same objections I got when I started making calls 15, 16 years ago. We still get that. I don't want to work with an agent right now. I don't want to pay a real estate commission right now. I don't want to, you know, I'll pay you 3% if we bring you a buyer. And a lot of these things, agents hear them, and I believe it's the agent's mindset that's the problem, not the objection they're getting that's the problem a lot of times. Like that whole, I'll bring you 3% to bring me a buyer objection. That's the greatest objection you could get.
Right.
And the reason I said,
Jason, just tell me quickly, how do you respond to some of these rejections? Because, like, you're right, this dissuades a lot of realtors, but how do you get through them?
Well, let's talk about the 3%. I'll pay you 3% to bring a buyer. So they go, I'll pay you 3% to bring a buyer. Where a lot of agents go, oh, no, I don't do that. They should be going, hey, it sounds fantastic. Can I meet you tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Right? They send them their pre-listing package. They show up prepared with their, you know, pricing strategy, comparables, net sheet, and paperwork all filled out. Because the old 3% thing, yeah, they might want 5 or 6%. That might be what they charge. The seller's offering 3. Let's say, for an example, you charge 6. The seller's already telling you, hey, they understand the value they bring. They understand that they do need realtor help, and they're willing to pay a realtor. At that point, you're just negotiating commission.
Right.
Right? They're offering to pay you 3, and, you know, to get paid what you're normally paid, maybe you got to negotiate another 2 or 3%. But you do that through your sales process. You do it through the sales process and follow up. Most of the agents are calling them as soon as they hear the whole 3% thing. They're shutting down. They're basically hanging up the phone, and they're never calling that person back again.
So how do you negotiate them up? Or how do you show them your value to get that negotiation process even on the table?
There's a couple of different ways. Number one, you need a pre-listing package. I tell agents in my coaching program that their pre-listing package, that's their number one tool. That's the service they sell. I've had this idea for a long time that we don't really sell houses. We sell a service that sells houses, right? We just happen to get paid on that service's performance. So what you want to do is you want to send over your pre-listing package, and then you go through your whole listing presentation. Unbelievably, I've been on listing appointments where they offered me 3% on the phone. We got there, we went through our pricing strategy, pulled out the net sheet. You know, on the phone we talked. You know, your script and your net sheet need to work together. The initial call script and the worksheet need to work together, because you want to know when you get there what they're looking for the house. I always like to show up with a 3-column net sheet. That net sheet, we've got low, medium, and high. Okay, so the middle column is really where I want to be, you know, but the high column, I'm willing to go to the high column. The low column is if I show up and the house is in way worse condition than what I'm thinking it is, you know. The high column, too, is there, you know, just in case you show up and it's way better than what you're thinking. You know, they've got to tell you about the sunroom. They've got to tell you about the bonus room over the garage. Got to tell you about the house is on a double lot, you know.
Right.
However, I'll tell you this. Okay, so I've heard that I price properties high, but I want to explain my pricing strategy to you. So, you know, in America, anything we buy based on availability of what we want, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to buy bed sheets and you go to, let's say, JCPenney. Okay, if JCPenney doesn't have the bed sheets you want to buy for the price you want to pay, you only have a couple of options. You either have to, number one, pay more money, right? Mm-hmm. Number two, wait for a sale. Number 3, go to a different store. Or number 4, just don't buy bed sheets right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Decide you're going to do something different. I don't know what you do different with bed sheets, but you're going to do something different. Okay, well, buyers kind of have that same choice. If they can't buy the house they want to buy that's in the area they want to live in, they either have to pick another area, they have to go back to the lender, ask for more money, they have to wait till a house goes on sale, which we know when a house goes on sale, usually there's a problem, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or number 4, just keep doing whatever they're doing now. You know, keep renting, right? So a lot of agents will sit there and they'll try to explain a real complicated pricing strategy. A lot of real estate agents think they're appraisers. You know, they want to talk about the square footage of the house. They want to talk about all these different things, which that does matter in a lot of cases. But in a lot of cases, 50 square foot, 100 square foot ain't going to make a lot of difference, you know? A lot of the communities and a lot of the clients we're working for are tract home. You know, the resales that we have today, a lot of them are tract homes, depending on your market. You know, so really, house number 1 on the street looks exactly like house number 3, number 5, and number 7. You know, you know the difference is the color of the vinyl siding. So a lot of times when you're looking at that, you know, you got to look at what's available. If a buyer wants to buy today, you know, if the house they want to buy isn't available for the price they want to pay, yeah, they can go somewhere else, but they might not be in the same school district. They might not be down the street from mom and dad. They might not be close to their friends or work, you know? So you have to explain your pricing strategy in a way that makes sense to the buyer, the seller. A pricing strategy people can buy into. Not the whole, we're going to add $1,000 here, we're going to take off $2,000 here, and, you know, your carpet looks dirty, so we're going to do this, and we're going to have 37 cents over because, you know, you got whatever. And a lot of agents do that. They make it so complicated the seller can't buy into their pricing strategy, you know? And then when they pull out their net sheet, same thing. They make it so complicated the seller can't buy in. You know, so what I've learned is that the easier I can make things, the easier I can explain things, the easier my presentation is, the easier it's going to be for the sellers to buy into my plan to sell their house. Because that's what they want, right? They want somebody that's got a plan.
Yeah.
Right? Just like going to the doctor. If you got to have heart surgery, you go to one doctor and he says, hey, we're just going to cut you open, fiddle around until we figure things out. Nobody wants to go to that doctor, right?
No.
You go to Dr. A, he's just going to cut you open. We're going to do exploratory surgery and just try to figure things out. You go to Dr. B, Dr. B's like, hey, we got step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. This is recovery time. This is what you're going to do. In 3 weeks, you're going to be brand new, right? Nobody's going to pick Dr. A over Dr. B. But as real estate agents, we think we can show up about as prepared with the same plan as Dr. A. And we don't understand it when people don't want to work with us. Right?
So you're saying simplifying is take the guessing out of it.
Yeah, we need to take the guesswork out. Take all the guesswork out. Even paperwork. You know, if we can have a pricing strategy that makes sense, our pricing strategy, our net sheet in the initial conversation work together. The information we got from the initial conversation works for the rest of our sales process, right? And then when we get to our paperwork, I learned this a few years ago when I had a larger team. I'd go on appointments with some of these agents, and, you know, I'd let them kind of take the lead with it. I was just there because they asked me to come, that sort of stuff. But I would listen to them go over their paperwork. Well, number one, they'd show up. Sometimes they'd show up and they'd not even have the paperwork with them. Right? How are you going to do business if you don't bring the list? How are you going to list their house if you don't bring the listing paperwork? They wouldn't even bring the paperwork with them. Or if they brought the paperwork, it wasn't filled out. And then they would go over their paperwork the exact same way their broker went over their paperwork in the classes they sat through, right? Which meant they went over every single word, line by line, and all the crazy stories their broker in charge told them that happened one time in the history of South Carolina real estate, they told at the listing presentation. So what ended up happening was the seller and husband and wife, they'd look at each other, their eyes would be about to roll back in their head. They were so bored. And they'd say, hey, we're going to have to think about this. We're going to have to look it over, right? What I recommend that agents do is they create a presentation for their paperwork the same way they do everything else. So they're explaining it in the kindest, gentlest, easiest way to understand, like a third grade level. I'm not saying anybody's clients are dumb. What I'm saying is your clients aren't used to looking at legal documents. That's what they are.
Right.
They're not used to looking at legal documents, and they're not used to this stuff. You know, really, when we look at this, you think about it. Like, I don't know much about your parents or anything, but how many times have your parents, unless you were military, your parents probably only moved once or twice while you're growing up, maybe 3 times. Maybe they got a retirement home, you know? A lot of people, their experience with selling a home, like, say, in the last 5 years, is probably 0 to 1. You know, our average client. You know, we very rarely do we come across that client that's done 100 transactions. Very rarely do we come across the client that's done another transaction in the same state in the last 2 or 3 years, right?
Right.
So a lot of them just don't really know how the process works, and a lot of them, you know, our stuff, I mean, we look at it every day, but our paperwork and everything can be quite intimidating. So back to your original question, how do we get over that? How do we get over that commission objection, and how do we get them up that 2 or 3% to get the commission where we want it to be? We got to do it through our sales process and through our presentation process. You know, we have to make sure that our presentation fits. We got to make sure that our net sheet works for what their needs are. And sometimes we do have to initially start out looking at their needs over ours. And what I mean by that is, if they need to net $150,000, you need to have a column that shows them netting right there at $150,000, you know? I see a lot of agents, they'll go, well, I think it'll sell for $150, but my client wants to list it for $155. I'm not taking the listing. It's overpriced, right?
Oh, wow.
I hear agents doing that all the time, or they'll go, well, I think it's worth $150, but they want to list for $165. Guys, in a hot market, that 10% probably isn't a big deal, especially with us being in the spring and going into the summer. Hey, I would take that listing if they want to list 10% over where I thought they should be, but they had some motivation, like they really needed to sell. I would take that listing every day.
Yeah.
You know, if they were the third lowest price one, the fourth lowest price one in the actives on MLS, I would take the listing every day, right? Especially going into the spring, summer. They have a couple of houses sell that are cheaper than them. Next thing you know, 60, 90 days down the road, they're priced really well. A lot of agents forget that too with their pricing strategy. A lot of agents try to price for today, right? They try to price for Monday, May 6th. And the thing is, but they want a 6-month listing agreement. And with your market actually moving in a positive direction rather than negative direction, you know, we can plan that, hey, you know, we can take that listing at 165 rather than 155, you know, and it's going to be okay because time and their motivation is going to correct the price for us.
I'm kind of curious in talking with you, Jason, like you're definitely in this niche part of real estate. How did you get there? How did you figure out that FSBOs were the way to go for you?
You know what? For sale by owners for me were, gosh, it was really one of those things that was just, honestly, it was kind of easy. Once I learned, I'll tell you this, when I first started, I was really good at getting my foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
And, however, I would have these 2-hour listing presentations and I would leave people's house going, oh my gosh, they loved me. They invited me to dinner. The truth was they invited me to dinner because they didn't think I was going to leave and they were hungry. So, when I first started out, my conversion ratio was horrible. I mean, it was literally, I was lucky to get 1 out of 10. Okay, so I started out with that. I started refining things. I kind of realized I come across this idea. I had this real estate coach tell me this. They said, "Hey, Jason, it's great that people you want people to like you, right? But these listing appointments, they're not a social visit. They're not a social call. The only reason they're letting you come to their house is because they think you can sell their house. And really the only reason you're going to their house is because, honestly, it's your job. And I hate comparing us to doctors, but I believe that we're truly a professional. I believe that we're in a professional business and environment. The only reason we go to the doctor is because we're sick.
Right.
It isn't, we might know them, but we're not going there to hang out. We're just going there because we've got a sore throat. They're only there because they fix sore throats, And so when I kind of realized that, it was just like all of a sudden, for sale owners started getting easy for me. I started timing myself on appointments. I started mapping it out. And the thing I learned about, for sale owners and expireds and all that stuff, and I realized that, honestly, if you start using the same scripts, the same dialogues over and over again, you're going to start learning after maybe 100, after 500, that you're going to get the same answers over and over again. And it doesn't take long until all of a sudden you know all the answers, you know all their objections, and you can, after a while, it's almost like you develop psychic abilities, You can tell them what they're going to say before they even say it.
Well, just lots of practice. Like you said, you've done so many of them.
It takes practice. I'll tell you where agents mess up with calling. Is they'll go and they'll find my script in my Facebook group, Real Estate Agents That Really Work. They'll go in there, they'll find my script, they'll start using it. They use it for a week, they use it for 2 weeks, whatever. They start, getting a little progress with it. They go in another Facebook group, and they'll see that somebody make a comment, "Hey, set 3 for sale owner appointments." And immediately they respond, "Oh, what script did you use?" And they say, "Hey, we used, grapey-grape realty speech, and our script." And they say, "Hey, can you send it to me?" So once they start using a new script, they have a learning curve with it. Once you start asking new questions, you're going to start getting new answers, like anything else. Right. So all of a sudden, they're basically starting back at zero again. So, and then by the, they use that script 2 or 3 weeks. By the time they start getting good at it and start being able to anticipate some of the questions, they switch scripts again. So they never build that muscle memory, and they never build that thing up where they can actually learn what people are going to say and learn what the process is going to be. So, but once I learned that that's why we use scripts, so we can know, we know the questions and we know the answers to the questions. I kind of realized that, I started going, hey, well, shouldn't my listing presentation be the same way? Shouldn't my listing presentation be canned and scripted too? And it was like all of a sudden it was kind of like a light bulb went off. And then my pre-listing package over the top of it, on top of it. We're in a market right now where competition is fiercer and smarter than it's ever been. Some of these kids getting their real estate license, man, they're younger. I'm not very old. I'm 38, but man, I don't have the energy I did when I was 22, right? But some of these kids that are getting their license, they're 21, 22, 23 years old. They're going to be amazing real estate agents. The greatest real estate agent in 2022 probably don't even have their license yet. The number one real estate agent for 2022 isn't licensed today. These kids are really smart, and these new agents are really smart. But, so these for sale owners have a lot of agents calling, and they have a lot of people setting appointments. However, 99% of them don't have a listing presentation. Well, they don't have a pre-listing package. They don't have anything that tells about them, their company, and what they're doing for a seller. They don't have their marketing plan, So that one tool I feel like will differentiate real estate agents from, anybody in their market just about. And some of the best agents in your market do not have pre-listing packages they're sending out.
Yeah,
and it makes it really easy.
Yeah, that feels like it's a no-brainer first step.
Yeah, it makes it really easy when they're comparing me and another real estate agent. When they say, "Oh, we've got another agent we want to meet," My response is fantastic. Ask them for their pre-appointment package. That way you can lay our marketing plan right beside theirs, compare apples to apples, and see who's going to do the most to get your home sold and see whose plan you like the best. And then when I do my follow-up call the next day with them and go, hey, Jason Morris here with eXp Realty. I just want to give you a quick call. And I wanted to see, did you get the other agent's marketing plan? I just kind of wanted to see how ours compared to it. They go, oh, well, they didn't have one. Oh gosh, well, if they don't have a marketing plan in writing, what are they going to do to sell your house?
Yeah, that definitely puts you above
that. Sign out there and hope something happens.
Yeah, it makes sense. So as somebody who's really comfortable with FSBOs, you can't drive by a sign without immediately calling, or how do you get your book of business?
You know what? Well, I like RedX. I like RedX because I can open up my laptop and it's right there. When I open up my laptop, it's, I don't have to look for leads. I don't have to spend any of my prospecting time going and finding leads. So I really like using them and like their service. I've been using them over 10 years. And great group of guys, too. They're doing a lot of innovative things with real estate data. So I like that. But at the same time, RedX isn't going to get the for sale by owner that's at the back of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? The person that all they did was buy that red and white sign from Home Depot. So when I see those signs, if I have time, I'd prefer to pull over in their front yard. Pull over in their front yard or pull over to the curb, call them while you're sitting in front of the house and say, hey, Jason Morris here with eXp Realty. I was riding around looking at some houses for clients because we're always doing things for clients when we're talking to potential clients. We're always doing things for clients.
Yeah.
I was riding around looking at some houses for clients, and I saw your for sale by owner sign here. Could you tell me a little bit about it? I'm sitting in the front yard. And you know what? Unbelievably, sometimes they'll just go ahead and invite you into the house. Other times, you know what? You don't get them on the phone. You leave a voicemail. You call back later on. Call back after 5. And really, those people that the hardest ones to get in touch with are your best leads. A lot of agents don't believe me when I say that, but the ones that if they're hard for me to get in contact with, I know they're hard for potential buyers to get in contact with. So their house probably isn't getting shown very much.
Oh, that's a great observation.
And I'll tell you what, when you're riding around, you cut through a different neighborhood, take a different way home, that sort of thing. The one that you got to get out and actually look at the sign because the Sharpies about faded off, those are excellent leads too. Sometimes, but follow up with that, even though, lots of times for sale owners are easy to get on the phone. A lot of times they're easy to have, those initial conversations with and stuff. You still have to follow up. And I used to have a real estate coach. This was years ago when I first started. He used to say, call them 3 times and throw them away. But in 2019, calling 3 times and throwing away doesn't work. I think our lives are busier than they've ever been before. And what I've learned is sometimes, you know what, there are people that will probably call me today, probably leave me a voicemail, people that I want to do business with. I want what they're selling. I want what they got going on, but I don't call them back because, hey, you know what, man, my days are busy. I go home and I got, my wife and my child, and I want to spend time with them. And next thing I know, it's 9 o'clock, right?
Right.
I don't mean to not call them back. It's just that I'm busy. And then sometimes by the time I have time to call them back, man, I forget about them,
Yeah.
So, and I think everybody's like that to a certain extent. Everybody has stuff going on. Everybody's busy. Even though we carry around a phone in our pocket, we're not always able to answer it. And so you have to follow up. Sometimes you try them in the morning. Sometimes you try them in the afternoon. Try them on the weekend, Everybody has a little different schedule, it seems like. And a lot of agents don't follow up because they think they're bothering the person. And, that's a mindset issue I think that we have where we're not bothering them. I truly feel in my heart that I'm the best person to help you with your house. And I truly feel the reason why you want to sell your house is because you have a problem, right? You're either moving up, you're moving down, you're moving because of a job, you can't afford the payments, whatever it is. House is too big to clean, whatever your problem is. I truly feel like I'm following up with you because I am the best person to help you with it. And I think that we need to wrap our head around that. We need to develop that belief in ourselves and what we're doing.
Right, like believe that you're there to help them. You're not necessarily there to bother them.
Yeah, you're not there just to collect a commission check and run away as quickly as possible. You're there because you truly want to help them with
whatever it is they have going on.
So if you're dealing with agents that are hesitant, because FSBOs are such a large part of like filling your database with potential customers, and so many people are scared of them, what would you say to an agent to get them started on working towards adding FSBOs to their docket?
Well,
here's the thing. You could have 50 listings and all 50 listings can get shown today. Where if you have 50 qualified buyers, you can't show them all property this month. There's no way possible. Unless they all want to see the same house. And then, what good are you doing anybody in that case, So you got to look at the business that you want. None of us really want to work 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. We can talk about grinding and being on our workflow and whatever cool hashtag, trendy hashtag is out there. But none of us really want to work 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, right?
Right.
And for a lot of these agents that are not calling for sale owners, they're not calling expires, they're not prospecting and looking for listings. For a lot of these agents, that agent is going to be in reaction mode all day. I've been there and I've done it before. When you're only working buyer leads and you're not leveraging your business with listings, you are in reaction mode. Most agents do not have a work schedule. They don't know when they're working, when they're not working, right? And when you're in reaction mode, it creates chaos in your business because, you're sitting at dinner with your family, you got to jump up and answer a call. So next thing you know, you not only have chaos in your business, you got chaos in your personal life too. But you got to look at the type of business you want to have. If you want to have afternoons off, if you want to be able to take weekends off, take trips, and your business still operate, then you got to go after for sale owners. If you want to be on an endless hamster wheel of unlocking doors and being at buyers beck and call and their whim just because they just so happen to get off work tomorrow, they want to look at houses and you have to rearrange your schedule to meet their needs, I think for most agents, they have to be able to really break through. They have to, number one, they have to decide what they want. Some of them, number two, they have to get to the point where they're tired of what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And what they're doing is so much pain and so much fear, which I'll tell you this, I feel like the worst days of my life was unlocking doors for buyers and discussing paint colors of bathrooms, Yeah. It's like, guys, let me just give you $100 for paint. Let's just do this and move on, But I think they have to decide what they fear more. If they don't start making calls, what's going to happen in their business? If they don't start making calls, what's going to happen in their life? I'll tell you this. I had a larger team, and I was doing a tremendous amount of transactions, and a lot of those were buyer-based transactions. And what that did for me was it put me on a hamster wheel, 7 days a week, close to 24 hours a day as I could. I gained weight. I was eating fast food all the time, doing nothing really healthy for myself. Pretty sure I had a stomach ulcer, and I never went on vacation, right? Anytime I left town, anytime I went out of range for cell service or whatever, it was like my worst nightmare when I got back cell service, And, man, it was miserable. And I feel like a lot of agents are in that position. I think that's why probably 80% of the real estate agents out there are divorced.
Interesting. So how do you rein that in and get more control so that you can live a better life?
Well, number one, you got to decide what kind of clients you want to work for. When this happened to me, I hated the real estate business. I wanted to quit. I disbanded my team. For about 3 months, I really didn't do anything except for an occasional transaction that fell in my lap, random people just calling me saying, hey, list my house, hey, show me this house. But really I was looking for something else to do. I had that realization that it wasn't the real estate business that I didn't like. It was the business and the job that I created for myself. So I realized that I got to pick what kind of clients I wanted to work with. So I decided that I didn't want to work with buyers unless it was somebody I knew personally or somebody that was referred to me by, friend or family member. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to set standards and you got to figure out what that client is you want to work for. Other than that, all buyer leads started getting referred to an agent that was in my office. As soon as I started doing that, all of a sudden it freed me up, and I could work on listings all the time. That's all I had to do was show up to the office and look for listings. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you swapped from being a buyer's agent to a listing agent. I
swapped, yes, ma'am. I swapped. I figured out what kind of buyer I wanted to work with, what kind I didn't want to. It opened up my schedule a lot, a tremendous amount. And then I made myself a schedule. You got to figure out, what kind of, number one, what kind of family things do you have planned, date night, stuff like that, things you got to do, take the kids to school, pick the kids up. You got to figure out what non-negotiable business items are going to go in your schedule, coaching calls, continuing education, things like that, things that won't move for you. And then the third most important thing is prospecting time. When are you going to go out and look for seller leads? When are you going to get on the phone? When are you going to call? When are you going to follow up? And then after that, everything else is really just appointments and other stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
is that a hard jump to make to go from being buyer's agent to listing agent?
I think it's more mindset. It's more mindset than it is difficulty. A lot of us get bogged down and we think we got to do all this stuff. We got to have a podcast. We got to work buyer leads. We got to work on our website. We got to do Facebook ads and click funnels and, whatever the latest, greatest magic bullet is. We think we got to do it all. But in reality, when you really get down to it, our business is about talking to buyers and talking to sellers. So if you're not meeting with a buyer or seller, you're not negotiating a contract, you're not looking for a buyer or seller to meet with, you're not attending a closing, what do you have to do, really?
Yeah.
That's really it. Most of our companies give us some sort of website, most franchises out there give you some sort of website. There's so many agents, they subscribe to a lead source, like Zillow or something like that. You don't have to work for the leads with Zillow. If you're paying them, they just send them to you. RedX will have the leads sitting in your email, basically sitting on your desktop today, So I think that we have to take and we have to look at the things that are unnecessary that we are not getting business from. B&I meetings, like I talk to real estate agents all over the country all the time, and a lot of them are real excited about joining B&I groups. And some of these B&I groups, man, they meet 2 or 3 times a month for a couple of hours for lunch or breakfast or whatever it is, but in reality, they're not getting any business from the B&I group. They're spending a lot of time to get nothing. I never like doing open houses. I don't want to say open houses are a waste of time because I have done business from them, and I know there's some agents doing a lot of business from them. But I always felt like an open house, to do an open house successfully in my area, I was going to have to go door knock a couple of days before, invite everybody. It's going to take me an hour to get, signs out and balloons and all that stuff. I was going to have to schedule 3 or 4 hours for the open house, and then it was going to take me about an hour or so to clean up, So an open house altogether was going to take me like 8 to 10 hours to get ready for, execute, clean up. In that 8 to 10 hours, man, you can make a lot of phone calls. You can touch a lot of sellers in 8 to 10 hours. In the open house, you're kind of just going. You're doing a lot of work to go sit in somebody else's living room and watch their TV for 4 hours. That's the way I felt about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it's really finding what the best use of your time in terms of making money.
Yeah, well, I'll share some statistics with you. This came directly from my group coaching. Okay, and it might be different other places, it might be different other programs, but something I learned from my group coaching, we done surveys, and this was about a year ago, and I'm happy to share all this stuff with you. What I learned that was it took about 8 to 9 calls to get somebody on the phone, and this was across the board, calling expireds, calling everybody, right? We didn't break it down into lead type and lead source. I think just calling for homeowners, you'd be less than this. But it took about 8 or 9 calls to get somebody on the phone to talk to them. Then in my group coaching, it was taking 22 calls on average to get one listing appointment, or 22 conversations on average to get one listing appointment. So what that means is you need to make roughly 176 dials to get set one appointment, right?
Right.
Now, this was across the board, all lead types and all levels of experience. You know, this is everybody. And so when we kind of look at that, and so let's say we're using a dialer, and let's say we're using just a one-line dialer, we're going to dial about 60 numbers an hour. And 60 numbers an hour, you know, you should be able to set one appointment every 2.5 to 3 hours. And if you got just a little bit better, with your scripts and dialogues, you can bring that number of 22 conversations probably down to 18 or 19 conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just got like 10 to 20% better. You know, basically, if you just use the same script all the time, you didn't role play, you didn't do anything, you just got 20% better, you could bring that down to, 18, 19 calls. So in the time it's going to take me to set up an open house and execute that open house and clean up, I could set 3 actual seller listing appointments. And out of those seller listing appointments, my group coaching was getting, across the board was getting about 50 to 60% of those. So, and this was at the appointment, going through my whole listing system. So if you can set 3 appointments in that same amount of time, you can do one open house, you're going to get, on the low end, you're going to get 1 to 2 of those appointments, you're going to convert them to a listing. You might get the third one, with follow-up,
Right.
So what's really a better use of time?
No, it makes sense. Absolutely. So I'm just kind of curious, Jason, are you on the track for an early retirement, or how do you best tell people how to get on that track?
Oh, man. I'll tell you, for me, like, one of the things that I learned about, that was probably the biggest thing in my life, was I learned about residual income. And I learned that, taking a listing's fantastic. Taking a listing's fantastic. Selling listings even better. Getting another listing next is great, but, in some cases it is a hamster wheel. It's you got to keep listing property to stay in business. One of the things I started looking at was like rentals. I think we are in the best position ever to find good deals on the market, And I started working really, really hard on building a rental portfolio and building that rental income. That was number one for me. Number 2 is I started looking for opportunities. EXP was one of them that I could generate some passive income. And one of the ways I've done it is I've recruited a team across the country and trained those agents to go out there and look for business and find business. And I have some agents doing just crushing it. They were brand new when they first started. They're doing it extremely, extremely well. But I still feel like, believe it or not, no matter what Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk says, buying your own personal house is the biggest tax break and the biggest thing that we should all be investing in.
Mm-hmm.
Because what else is out there that you can actually take? You can buy your house, you can live in it 3 to 5 years, hopefully it appreciates. You're going to have to live somewhere, right? But you can buy a house, you can live in it 2 years, 3 years. If you live in it over 2 years, you can sell the house. You cannot pay taxes on your gain, right?
Right.
And as a primary residence, you cannot pay taxes on the gain, and then you can use that money to buy down another house, or you can do whatever you want to with it. I mean, I don't know of any other investment out there that basically you can go live in and then basically make money tax-free. I think all of us as real estate agents should be seriously looking at if we don't own a home, we should be looking at buying one, and how can we buy one, right? And we should be buying one that's a good deal. you know? I mean, it drives me crazy.
You hear a lot of people, like I'm sure when they're out and about working for leads and whatnot, you hear a lot of people sitting on the sideline because they're waiting for that good deal, or the market's too hot right now, I'm waiting for it to turn or whatever. What do you say to those people?
You know, the people that are looking for deals out there, I don't care what market you're in, there's always deals. A lot of times those deals aren't on MLS. Sometimes we got to get real creative looking for them. You know, calling for rent by owners and databasing those for rent by owners are fantastic. That way you can keep calling back through your list and looking for that landlord when they get tired. I'll tell you what, I had an eviction hearing this morning at 9:15, and it's one of those situations where, man, I just want the people gone. I don't even care. I don't even care. I'd like to get rid of the house. You know, before the eviction hearing this morning, unfortunately they ruled in my favor, so the people have to move. But before the eviction hearing, man, I was so sick of these tenants. I just wanted them to go. You know, I just wanted to be done with the whole thing. And I feel like I'm the opposite of a lot of these people. I'm a professional landlord, you know? Like I've set out to be a landlord on purpose. Most of the people out there that are landlords that have one property, they didn't do that on purpose. They got stuck with that thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing the
So I think we have to get creative, you know, hey, when there's a building code enforcement issue, you know what? The city and the county, they file something, they file a notice with the county or the city or wherever it's at, you know? All that stuff's public record. When somebody has foreclosure filed, it's public record. Probate's public record. Hey, eviction filings are public record, right? You want to talk to people that are tired of owning a house? Talk to landlords that are in the middle of eviction. Right. Especially these agents up north, right? If I lived somewhere like, I know Pennsylvania's like this, I know New York, New Jersey's like this, but some of these real cold states have these funky eviction laws where they cannot evict tenants. They can't evict tenants if the temperature is below a certain degrees and these times a year. I tell you what, calling those eviction filings would be a gold mine for those real estate agents.
Oh, that's
right? Because, I mean, here we can file an eviction and we can have a person out in 2 to 4 weeks with no problems in South Carolina, and still that's a long time. You know what I mean? You miss a month's rent. Hopefully you got a deposit.
Yeah.
But still you got to clean it up. You got to get them out. You got to clean it up. You know, before you know it, 2 months have passed by. So a 1 month deposit isn't very much money.
Right.
But that's a great source of leads, you know. Problem properties. I found a lot of deals looking at problem properties, you know. Every state, gosh, I can go on and on with this. Every state has tax liens and tax sales. Every state's a little bit different. But in South Carolina, if you don't pay your property taxes, the tax lien gets auctioned off. The auctions happen every December, I believe. And the person that gets the tax lien, after 13 months, they can go to the courthouse, file some paperwork, and they can actually take possession of the house, right? So you look at that, and every state has some version of that. Some states are longer, some states are less time, but every state has a version of that. And guys, there are a lot of people out there that can't pay their taxes on their house, and they're about to lose their house over $500, $1,500. You know what I mean?
That is.
And man, there's some good deals out there. Hey, there's some good deals out there on contacting the people that got the tax liens. Lots of times they didn't really want the property. What they wanted was they wanted to be able to, they wanted the return. Because a lot of tax lien investments, every state's different, like I said, but I want to say here it's 12% return. It's basically guaranteed money, or you end up with the deed. But a lot of these people didn't really want the property. They just wanted that 10, 12, 15. Some states are 15%.
Sure.
Right? So contacting that person that got the tax deed, man, sometimes there's some deals there.
And how do you get the tax deed? Do you get it just because you pay the taxes for them?
You basically you bought the tax lien at the auction and waited a certain amount of time.
And is it arbitrary, the number they slap on it for you to own it, or is it you have to pay their taxes?
Yeah, typically it's just back taxes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just depends on where you're at. I'll tell you, rural counties, there's some deals. I talked to a guy the other day, and this is a little bit of, it's kind of a funky deal. I did not buy the property, but the guy had 3 acres. And I was real interested in the 3 acres because another piece of property was close to him. Get this, he wanted $5,000 for the 3 acres. It was high ground, it was buildable property. They actually had 3 septic tank permits already.
Uh-huh.
So the guy had a tax deed for it. He sent me over all the information because I told him before you buy a tax deed property, you want to see if anybody can come back and make a claim against it. Anyway, I'm not an attorney, and it's different in every state. But I told him that I wanted to have a title search done just to see if there were any other liens because he just got the deed for the property.
Right.
So he actually had already had this done, so he sent it over to me along with what he paid for it. He only paid $240 for the property.
Oh, gee.
He actually got, now it's in a rural county, it's very, very rural county, but he got 3 acres of land for $240, and he was going to turn around. Hey, and I thought it was a deal at $5,000.
Yeah.
I thought I was stealing the property at $5,000. I didn't buy I ended up not buying the property. It wasn't because of me. It was because he didn't want it to go through an attorney. Where the attorney stayed, he just wanted to buy the property and quit claim deed it over to me, and I at least wanted the attorney to handle the quit claim. Anyway, long story short, we just could not agree on how the transaction was going to take place. But I've seen a lot of those deals before, and there's a lot of those deals out there. I looked at another one not long ago that was 6 acres. It was on a busy highway. Guy wanted $34,000 for the property. He already had a water and sewer tap there, and he got it from a tax sale for like $7,000.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, this was a property that honestly, he had a tax deed. Sometimes, you can actually cure the tax deed to get a more marketable title for it. Usually tax deeds, a lot of banks won't lend on them unless they go through a title quieting process. But there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of deals out there. I mean, you just got to get creative on how you find them. A lot of real estate agents will look at MLS and they think, but typically most of the real deals never make it to MLS. Hey, I'll tell you what, looking at for sale owners, looking at deals for sale owners are fantastic. I had one a while back. I sold it to an investor client of mine, but the lady's house flooded. She had a pipe bust. The house flooded. She did not have insurance to cover it. She owned the property free and clear. They tore out all the carpet and stuff. And they kind of mitigated most of the damage, so it wasn't causing any further damage from the pipe breaking. Mm-hmm. But you know what? She didn't have the money to fix it up, to re-rent it. She didn't want to deal with it. And I had a client that I'd done a lot of work with. I talked to the lady. She told me she wanted $85,000 for it. I told her that I had a client that was interested, made sure she'd pay me a commission. I had her do a one-time showing agreement with me. I called a client of mine. He bought the house for $90,000, included my commission, and fair market value was like $155. He had to do some work. It wasn't an easy transaction, but let's say he spent $20,000. He did it for $110 plus real estate commissions and selling it a second time. Maybe he was in it for $120 total cost. Had a $150,000 house.
Yeah.
In a good neighborhood. You know what I mean? So there are a lot of deals out there. You just have to get creative on where you're looking for them.
Well, and I love that. I love that you're talking about this because it's a way of like opening up agents' minds and thinking in a direction they're not really accustomed to thinking about. So this is a great opportunity to think outside the box and teaching us how to do that. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. So as we wrap up, Jason, what's the best tip you can give a real estate agent that we can end on?
You know what? There's a lot of strategies out there. Consistency, follow-up is the key, and just going and doing it. A lot of agents are overthinking it, Just don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah, I love that. That's for all things in life, not just real estate.
Yeah, don't think about it a whole lot, Spend about 5 minutes sketching out your plan and just get started like now.
Like it. So Jason, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go to get in touch with you?
Man, probably the best place is my Facebook group, Real Estate Agents That Really Work. I do a lot of training stuff in there. I do a lot of free training stuff in there. Always posting questions, always answering questions, helping agents out. That's probably the best way to find me and the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, that's great. And I'm a part of that group, and it is a fantastic group. Again, it's Real Estate Agents That Really Work on Facebook. And if you'd like to learn more about prospecting today or read more of the stuff that we're putting out there, please join us at prospectingtoday.com. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.